You know, the crazy thing about locales is they could actually have a higher part of themselves trying to communicate with them, but it backfires. It's a strange thing, but it actually makes a lot of sense because psychologists know this. They know that the way the human brain works is almost like it's almost like more than one brain in a sense. You have different aspects of who you are, and they're conjoined into a singular um, like a single person, a single personality. And actually, the more clear your mind is, and the better, um, the less contradiction there is in a lot of these aspects of the mind. Um, could indicate one's intelligence level. Because a lot of people, they have these different um, forces pulling them in all these different directions. And what does a genius do? A genius takes his his abilities and concentrates them into his efforts. He's not necessarily just doing one thing at a time, but everything he does has a common goal behind it. Christian's interesting. His life does mirror um, someone that has a higher vision, and so does Cyrax and a lot of these people, but they don't actually become an embodiment of it. Or they become an embodiment of some of the principles, but they do it in a twisted, sort of messed up way. It's the whole idea of what the one yogi once said, that if Jesus tries to contact someone, the reason why Jesus wouldn't dare try and contact someone in a negative trance state, right, has to be a positive yogic trance. It can't be a negative trance. The reason why a figure like Jesus or Buddha would never dream of doing that is because of a similar reason. It would be distorted beyond recognition, and that's the interesting thing about Christian and this Magichan thing. This Magichan seems to be a higher part of Christian that seems to try to push him in a positive direction, but Magichan can sometimes be used to justify um, fucked up things, like that soul bond and stuff that he did with his mother. And that time, he tried to drink his own navy, because there's almost like it's almost like a common knowledge that we have inside of us, that there's some type of potential in the seed of the seed in the male and the sexual energy in the female. There's almost like a universal understanding, an idea that this seed holds some kind of power. or it could hold a power, or it could be that draining the seed drains your power in a sense, because a lot of this energy is going south when it could be going into other more constructive things. And Christian's instance of drinking his own navy inside the orange Fanta is almost like an inversion of the alchemical process, because when you meditate and you actually retain your seed, what happens essentially is the two hemispheres in your brain sort of work together, right, during meditation, and it's almost like a dimensional merge in a sense. And there's these hormones, which are the melatonin and the melatonin and the DMT, which have the colors of like a creamy color, almost like milk, and honey, which is sort of a yellowish color, almost like the Fanta. And the Fanta is acidic, which is almost like the feminine, the feminine chemical, and the his navy, right, that comes out of Christian is alkaline, and it's almost like a neutralization effect, almost like Christian's life is almost like an inversion. It's like he's looking for the goal, but every time he sees the path, he inverts it. You know, it's like the inverted pentagram, or it's like the upside down cross. It's like that type of thing. And my stories, I've told interesting stories, and I don't believe they're 100% true, but I do believe they have a lot of truth. These stories about, me and Christian and many individuals and brothers once being, these shining beings in this higher realm, right? And I stayed, and he fell to earth, right? It's kind of like the Satan story in a sense. It's not 100% true, but it's got a lot of truth in it, because while I don't consider myself to have ever been any type of higher power, I do believe we evolve. We might become higher in some sense, but this idea, of the dissension of something that could have been great, and my recognition of that. Jesus saying he saw Satan fall like lightning from the sky, in a similar way to how I see greatness sort of inverted in the life of Christian, where it can be great, but instead it's the opposite. It's like seeing something fall from heaven and descend into hell instead of vice versa. And it's a crazy concept, absolute crazy concept, but there's almost like a alchemical dimensional merge, because if you understand what a dimension is from a purely sort of based on what we know a dimension is a measurement, and it's not just a measurement. A dimension is a measurement that it measures manifestation in a sense. So you got the three dimensions, which draws from the time-space continuum, and time sort of draws on the idea of motion, and motion is kind of like a mind substance in a way. It's kind of pulls on mind in a sense, which pulls on will. And, you got this idea that there's almost like, an internal kingdom. And, it draws on will, but, there's internal will and external will. And the bigger your will is, the more it's able to shape things around you. And Jesus, not Jesus, but Christianity even said that when you actually start to, he said, when you write things down, you don't just write, you're not just writing things down, you're actually chronicling it in his mindset. Well, that's not 100% true, but the idea of thought forms is something that has existed for millennium. And essentially, it's this idea that thought, when compacted into gross formations, actually can be material things, and in other realms, they actually work almost like things, in a sense. This might actually be why some of the ideas in the church are misleading, or might lead to visions of things they want to believe rather than what might be the truth. In other words, what am I saying? There is a reconfiguration of the 7 dimensions of creation, which can be viewed in metaphysics, which mirrors the idea of a dimensional merge, but in sort of an opposite way, in the sense that you can't ground yourself in heaven until you ground yourself on earth. You have to have a certain level of humility, and this inverted process is exactly what I'm talking about. The idea of going from being in heaven and descending down to the earth, or being on earth and going upwards, right? What goes down must come up, what goes up must come down, is true in evolution.